Archbishop, cardinal, bishop, whatever, apostle, prophet. The devil doesn't care what talent or title you have. You must stand for something, otherwise your title is useless. You are a boss, you've employed people, but you don't own them. Bosses, male bosses, listen to me, you don't own the staff. You don't own their bodies, and you don't own their feelings, and you don't own their minds, and you cannot call them to your office at any time and have any kind of conversation with them and make suggestions at them. You don't own them. And it's time Christian bosses act like Christians. And ladies, you don't own your workers too, because this is a lady giving trouble to a young man. It happens both ways. You don't own them. And you don't act as if because you employ them and pay them, you can do anything because you employ them. There is a lot of Christian men in all kinds of offices harassing women. There are Christian men who are sleeping with people who apply for jobs before they employ them. There are Christian teachers who are violating the trust of their students and pupils. You cannot say you are a Christian, a child of God and an ambassador of Christ, and behave like a child of the devil. If you're a Christian, you behave like a Christian. Where in the church and in the office, and really in the church, you don't supposed to be a Christian. In the church, you have no options. God is here and you will be right. Where we need you to be a Christian is not in the church, it's in the world. Jesus did not say you are the salt of the church. He didn't say you are the light of the church. He says you are the salt of the earth and the light of the world. It's when you leave the church that your true Christianity must show. You have to know what you stand for. And number 4, we learn from Joseph, you must know when to run. You must know when to run. I like Joseph, and really of all the 4 things I like about Joseph, the last one is the best. Know when to run. When it's getting too hot, the relationship is getting too muddy, the conversation is getting too deep, the night calls are getting too much, run. You should be able to run from your boss's office. Don't just say, I'll stand here and I'll resist the devil and he will flee from me. Run! This is not a devil who flees. This is Joseph fleeing. Run! Sometimes you have to learn to run. Stop an action. Stop a relationship. Don't let it go any further. Break it. Cut it off. If you want to keep your hands pure, you have to run and fight another day. There's a time to stand and there's a time to run. Joseph tells us when the pressure is strong and the heat is fiery, don't stand and pray, run. It's all right to run from temptation than to fall into temptation. It's all right to run when the relationship is getting too deep. It's getting too bad. You're in the room with that person and the temperature is going high, although the air conditioner is on. You know that it's not external temperature. This is internal temperature. Something on the inside working on the outside. You have to get up and run. That's what we learn from Joseph. You have to know the games people play. You have to know your boundaries. You have to know where you stand. You have to know when it's time to run. Second example is David's example. David said some pretty bad examples, but in this area he said a good example. What do you do when people really are harassing your life? They're trying to mess your life up. They fight you, they are enemies, they're trying to disorganize you. Everywhere you pass, they are there, they frustrate you. They spread rumors about you, blackmail you, do all the negative things against you, and then all of a sudden, you are in a position to destroy them back. What do? How do you keep your hands clean so that you don't bloody your hand? You remember when we were talking in part 1, we talked about shedding innocent blood. Thou shalt not murder. But you know, sometimes there are some people that look like they should be murdered, don't they? Because they harass your life, they pester your life, they make your life on earth like hell. And then one day God puts them into your hand, or you're in a position to really eliminate them, cut them off. What do you do? David was a young man. David was a very young man. He was a son of promise, born into obscurity but discovered by God. David was picked up from among his brethren and separated for national leadership. He was a national hero at the age of 17. He's a very talented poet, a songwriter, musical performer, military strategist, and anointed king in waiting. That's enough to intimidate anybody, especially the sitting king whose name was Saul. So Saul was intimidated by David, and he planned ways and schemes to try to destroy David. Everywhere David passed, Saul had a trap set for him, until David had to run as an outlaw to live in the wilderness. But even then, Saul pursued him. And then this one day, David finds an opportunity to kill Saul. And he could finish Saul off and just eliminate his own problems. But let's look at what David did. 1 Samuel chapter 26, verse 9 to 11. This is how David responds when he finds Saul in a cave. Saul is in a vulnerable position. David is armed and his men are with him. This is his moment of advantage. This is his strength. He's a wilderness boy. Saul has come to the wilderness. David is advantageous. He has his soldiers with him. He's armed. Saul is alone, just with a couple of people. So people tell him, hey, David, this is it. Solve the problem. Get rid of this tyrant once and for all. But listen to David's response from verse 9, 1 Samuel 26. But David said to Abishai, do not destroy him, for who can stretch out his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? David said, furthermore, as the Lord lives, the Lord will strike him, or his days shall come to die, or he shall go out to battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I should stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed. But please take now the spear and the jug of water that I